Hey guys, welcome back. BDCKR here. We're back with Season 6, Episode 35 of our weekly P&Q&C&A&T videos, of which the important letters are Q and A, and then also as an addendum P, and the Q&A stands for question and answer, which is pretty standard, and the P stands for podcast, and as you like to say, our patrons on Patreon,
Right.
who have helped support us and allow us to do things like put this up on most of the major podcasting platforms, which you can access in the links in the description if you're currently on the video format, which we mention every time. Does not seem to particularly increase the number of people who listen to it on the podcast platform, but you know,
And
it's there anyways if you want it.
So, not that it's a big secret, the C stands for comments, T stands for talk, should be self-evident, and I do want to talk about, just to wrap up something last week, the word I was looking for when I was saying that it's something that's old but not antique. Vintage. That's the word that people put on stuff that is not old enough to be or to be valuable just because it's old, but it's old enough that people who are feeling nostalgic will be willing to pay a premium, and they don't want to just say old used junk. They want to put a fancy name on it so they can feel better about charging more, and that's vintage.
Okay, that makes sense. That was a good word for what you were looking for yesterday, well, that makes sense because it was the word you were looking for yesterday.
Yes, last week.
Sorry. I'm very tired.
Yes.
The first
day of school.
First day of school. Yep. Commuting, so that was fun. Couple hours each way.
Yeah. Couple hours each way.
Sorry, not a couple hours, like an hour. It was like an hour and a bit one way, and then like
it was uphill both ways.
It was like an hour. It was more than an hour and a half on the way back, even though it shouldn't have been, just because traffic.
Rush hour.
Because of when I decided.
Yeah, coming up. Yeah. There's certain streets that are just really bad.
Yeah. A couple hours is inaccurate. That's true. Our first question comes from Thanos, and they say, "Hey, BDCKR, I have a small question. I have 3 main characters, an Elite 6 and 2 Elite 5 with good gear. I always play Veteran and Phantom Zone. I want to move on and go Elite difficulty. Can you find me an easy way for me to finish some challenges like Lifesteal, Damage Over Time, and Drain Power? My other characters are weak, and I don't know how to do those challenges quickly. It's pretty hard for me. What should I do, Elite or Veteran, and tell me the quickest way to complete the challenge?" And then also, please leave timestamps on videos like
I don't think that's
vids
please,
like Q&As.
I think that's PS.
PS. I said, very tired.
Yeah.
PS, please leave timestamps on videos like Q&As.
So the timing of this is kind of interesting because we just put up an article on Patreon about Phantom Zone and the strategy at the elite level for completing the challenges as efficiently as quickly as possible, basically just wasting as little time as possible.
Yeah, so we really have that information pretty much exactly as is up on our Patreon.
And the idea was that this is a video I think that's worth making. It's been bouncing around in my head for a bit, and it kind of crystallized some of the ideas that I've been working with, some of the principles. I mean, you saw it at the beginning of this video where we were swapping out the elites. Before you start a crystal, if you swap out to a different crystal and you come back, you can change all the tasks.
Yeah, it's not locked in yet.
Yeah, you don't want to do it when you've already made some progress because then you lose all your progress. Mm-hmm. So and it may not be obvious from what you're seeing, but there's definitely a specific approach, and one of the approaches out of your 3 options of Lifesteal, Damage Over Time, and Drain Power, and I guess maybe part of it is that these are things that either are not in or are easier to do in the other easier levels of the crystal. I should probably pay attention, but because by the time the Phantom Zone started, we were just so far along, it didn't seem like it was worth the time to try to use up our plays on the cheaper crystals and get crappier rewards. So the first point, the main point, is really Drain Power is not worth it. It's not even worth trying for. I believe, I don't even know if it's fixed because I just never bothered checking, and after we realized it was so hard that Drain Power doesn't register properly. So all those things where you think you're getting power, I think maybe the gears do, but it does it inconsistently at such a low level that you're basically using up it's blocking up a slot out of the 4 tasks that you can do. Yeah. And what you don't want to do is waste any effort trying to do it, even if you leave a slot blocked. And that's part of I think what our potential video on the Phantom Zone, based on the article, will be, is that sometimes it's worth just leaving the slot and not re-rolling. Yeah. It's figuring out when it's the most efficient time to reroll and when it's worth spending 5 nth metal to reroll, and probably not more than the one time. Lifesteal, you can see we've got not our ideal flashpoint loadout, but our ideal Phantom Zone flashpoint loadout. Oh, I guess it goes without saying that you need to have guys that are powerful enough. It's great that they're Elite 6 and Elite 5.
Yeah.
But these, I mean, certain Elite 5s are different. This Flashpoint Elite 5 is clearly different than almost any other team Elite 5 just because the damage output is higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so, damage over time, there's 2 damage over time tasks. One is the damage over time effects, which is still worth 135, which is sort of the standard value out of the 1500 that you need. And Lifesteal, which ideally actually is done, and it's not even, I think it's health. They call it health when it's the elite level. You can do that in 1 or 2 or at the most 3 rounds, and the way we do it is with LexCorp chestplate, because that somebody pointed out to us when we were using the Soul Taker sword that the chestplate actually has a higher percentage, I think 99% chance of lifesteal, and you would normally be able to do it on any other character in 1 or 2 rounds. In fact, in the Flashpoint team, it's a little bit more difficult only because when the teammates come in, the pirate crew come in to do damage also, that damage does not count towards lifesteal. So sometimes you'll do a bunch of damage, knock them out, and it might take up to 3 rounds. Typically, if you've got the multiples already, like if you're into the 2nd and 3rd online fight with the extra bonus.
Yeah, only a couple rounds.
In my mind, there's 3 tasks that are the best. And the damage over time, the one where it's a certain amount of damage over time, is actually not one of the best tasks to do, only because it's worth less points. 70 points, I believe, towards your 1500 total.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 best, I guess this is a spoiler alert, the 3 best, I believe, are basic attack damage, which can be done in 1 round, even if there's no, there's only the 1 bonus that you get for keeping your whole team intact. You don't even need to have 2 online fights in a row, the extra bonus to make it worth it. And the 10 online fights in a row, because you can finish that in 2 with the first, with basically 2-3. If you get a 3 times bonus for finishing with your team intact, and the second fight you get a 2 times bonus. That's 5, 1, 2, 3. So you need 3 rounds actually. Sorry. But the advantage of that is it's worth 270 points, which is twice any other task.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that you should actually try for. So when you're doing the rolls at the beginning, you want to have at least 2 out of the 3 best ones, which are 10 online fights in a row, basic attack damage, and stealing health.
There we go.
Yeah, so if you get drain power, don't bother even trying.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it.
Okay. Our next question comes from Apocalypse, and they say, what do you 2 think about Joker being in Mortal Kombat 11?
So this is kind of funny to me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got Scorpion in Injustice.
Yeah.
And Scorpion, I guess, has been used in some... I've heard, I don't actually know, I've heard that Scorpion has been used in some DC properties where he's appeared in a comic book.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
So it doesn't feel so out of place. And the idea of a fighting game, it actually kind of works.
Yeah.
The problem, I think, is... I mean, and there's a long tradition in DC Comics of crossovers, right?
Yeah.
So, there were Marvel versus DC comics. They've done just, the whole idea that there's certain universes that are in parallel and they bring somebody in and somebody else. It feels sort of normal. The idea of Joker in Mortal Kombat is just kind of funny to me, because I guess the Mortal Kombat universe doesn't feel nearly as large. And so when you bring in somebody like Joker, who's got a really a wholly different aesthetic, where, he's wearing a suit kind of thing. I mean, I guess they brought in Jason from the movies, like Jason Voorhees. Is that the guy?
Yeah, the Friday the 13th guy with the hockey mask.
So even that isn't as far or as jarring as bringing in a guy in like a suit with makeup on, and I don't know. It just what do you think?
Now, to me, I think it. You're right. He doesn't really thematically fit, and sort of in the Joker universe, right? He's not the type of dude who just beats on people. That is totally not Joker's role
Right,
ever.
right.
He's
He's not a fighter.
yeah, he's positioned as a little bit more of
He's management.
a thinky villain.
No, but he's a management.
Yeah. Yeah, he organizes stuff. He's not meant to be particularly powerful by himself. It's like the thing that they did with him in the Arkham games, right? Where they made his boss fight. I think it was in Arkham City or Asylum, where they made his boss fight. He just injects himself with like whatever Bane's roid juice or whatever is. I think it's something like that. I didn't actually play the game, but it's just a big, massive boss fight because there's like they can't actually just have you beat on the Joker because that doesn't make sense. And I was thinking what it reminds you of most actually is Soul Calibur's weird cameos, because Soul Calibur has a lot of weird cameos, and so I just googled on my phone a list of them. I just knew Yoda.
Yoda was in Soul Calibur?
Yoda was in a Soul Calibur, I think 3 or something. But here are some of the cameos. I'm just gonna read the ones I know.
Okay.
Geralt of Rivia, so Witcher 3, Yoda, Kratos from God of War, Darth Vader, Starkiller, Ezio Auditore from Assassin's Creed, and there's a bunch more. Spawn was in Soul Calibur, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess what's common in all
Link,
of them, they're known for fighting,
from
right?
the Zelda series.
Like they're known, they are, like when you're talking about a player versus player kind of fighting game, right? Like it definitely makes a difference, like you were saying, the Joker is not really a fighter.
Yeah, and I think that's the main thing. Like, you know,
it's less of a stretch in Injustice. Because he's a character in the universe, at least.
That's true. And despite the fact that they basically do make him just a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So I don't think I have any issues with other characters being in fighting games in general. I think on some level it's kind of cool, in the same way that Injustice is kind of cool for having all these characters that you already know.
Yeah.
Where if you just added people in a weird mishmash, like I think Marvel vs. Capcom had like Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney or something like that.
Who?
Phoenix Wright. He's from like I like DS games. And he's like an attorney. It's like an attorney game.
An attorney game, you mean like a lawyer?
Yeah.
Attorney. Okay. That is you're saying a bunch of words.
Yeah,
but
Phoenix Wright was in Marvel vs. Capcom, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom, and like a lot of his attacks, he points at the other player, goes objection, and like he's like just throwing papers and stuff. He's like, I don't know if he's Marvel or Capcom. I didn't realize what Phoenix Wright was, but okay. I thought he was a Nintendo property. I guess that's probably not accurate if he was in that game, but you know.
I think it all amounts to just what you're used to and what you're willing. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal either way. To me, it's just it's a little bit off-putting, but I don't even care about Mortal Kombat enough now.
It's slightly strange, is what it is.
Yeah.
But I personally don't have any issues with it. I think it's sort of fun to just have random folks show up in games, and I'm willing to suspend a lot of my disbelief for these where people are just wailing on each other. It's the same thing where you can fight a team where you have an exact carbon copy of yourself, right? Where it's like two same universe Supermen beating on each other in this, right? Yes. Where I'm willing to suspend my disbelief enough to let them do pretty much whatever they want with it, as long as it's a fun fighting game. And if it's characters that I think it even gives them a little bit more creative license to be weird with it.
Yeah, it feels like Sweep's special guest stars, though, I guess.
Oh, like Sweeps Week?
Yeah, Sweeps Week, which used to be... Is this still a thing on TV?
No, it's not still a thing on TV. I just know about it because the McElroy brothers talk about it. Make jokes about it. Yeah, where they just have like a bunch of like weird cameos and everybody's in everybody's shows.
Yes.
And it's like everybody takes a moment to step outside the show and just be like, let's just do things that people would find entertaining. That don't make a lot of sense.
Oh, this is going to be a really tight fight.
I do like the idea of Sweeps Week, though, in theory, where they say, hey, we're just going to do random stuff that we think the fans will enjoy, and we're going to pretend this week didn't happen afterwards, because it would totally destroy the continuity of every single television show.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Our next question comes from Vamo Kage.
Kage? Is it Kage or Kage? I guess it depends on where the root of this.
VAMO space KAGE. So these are two paired questions. The first one is, I have a doubt, and I hope you can answer. You had like 5 million power credits in your last video, and now you have 18 million. Did you literally farm like 13 million power credits over the last few days? And then, like, a
Day later?
day and a half later,
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
At least a day and a half later.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 full days later. Comment from the same guy. Your last video had 18 million, and now it's 5 million. What are you guys doing with all the power credits? So, we're not putting this question in to be like, isn't that funny, right? When you put these sort of next to each other, I think it becomes a little more obvious what's happened, right?
Yeah, I mean,
we went from 18, we went from 5 to 18 to 5 in 3 consecutive videos.
I mean,
right?
Awesome Gamer 241 was the one that answered it quickly both times. I mean, we have different accounts. That's what the thing is.
Yeah.
And the reason why this was worth, I think, adding to the list is it speaks to a little bit of why this, one of the reasons why it's so hard to maintain a channel.
Yeah.
And why you see so few, I think, Injustice channels now. But, I mean, there used to be way more.
Mm-hmm.
And people who would feel like, you know, enthusiastically
Yeah.
upload a bunch of videos.
I think the thing that I find interesting about it is that it shows a sort of active watching and looking at sort of the content on the screen, but in a very specific way, because it shows an active watching of the credit totals, but not of our account names.
Right, because the
Between
account names
videos.
were obvious in both.
Yeah, but the credit totals were also obvious in both. And I guess that sort of makes sense, because you don't really care as much about people's account names as how much money they got, right?
What's in their pocket?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I mean, it's sort of the same answer to a lot of questions, like when people ask, why not put a different team as the background for your Q&A? Why not more gameplay videos? Why not more than just the stuff that we can do? Like our baseline basically is the recap every week of what's happening.
Yeah.
And a P&Q&C&A&T video.
Yeah, and the reason we don't do other videos is because we're creatively bankrupt.
I mean, that too. But I mean, you think about it, just the time that we put in to play this game and to maintain separate accounts and put in enough time. I mean, if you think about all the things, whoever's listening, if you think about all the things that you do as a player trying to grind Phantom Zone and Breakthrough and Survivor and multiplayer and getting your challenge characters, we're doing all that on multiple accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 2 of us, but it's still, I mean, it's still time. And if you add all the stuff that goes into experimenting and testing stuff out.
It takes a while.
And not all of it is fit for video.
I got school, you got a job.
It's true.
Yeah. And then at the end of it, we have to come together and we have to make, I think, around an average of an hour of content every week. Yes. We don't have to. I shouldn't say
we
have
don't.
to.
We do.
We choose to. We enjoy making an hour of content every week. But, 2 people, hour each, right?
Yeah.
And that's not including the time before and after.
Right, because so that's why we take advantage
around.
of all the actual gameplay video that we've got.
Yeah.
Like this is just grinding. This is just plain try and get through Phantom Zone as quickly as possible to get the crystal and play through. And actually, that was one thing I wanted to point out from one of our last week things. This actually is a relatively clean account. So this has been the Valorem alloy total in this account is pretty much legitimate. This is what you could potentially get. Yeah. And it's almost enough now for a second metal character to be completely maxed out in terms of whatever the Valorem alloy stuff that costs.
Yeah.
So I guess we're getting close to time where you can no longer look at a metal team and say that's definitely a cheat because they've maxed out their passive and their specials, because it'll be possible to do it legitimately. We're having enough Phantom Zone events consistently that we're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we go. And I actually have a couple of recommendations I want to make right here.
Okay.
I'm going to do something that I don't normally do, and I'm going to recommend a book that I haven't read, but I have heard about from a couple sources. So, and these recommendations are all bundled together. So the book that I'm recommending is the book Because Internet by Gretchen McCulloch.
Oh, I want to get that.
I want to get that. So I'm talking about it. Maybe I should say not a recommendation. I should say I'm personally excited about it, and I am very confident that it's going to be good.
I've heard lots of good things about it too.
Yeah.
She was really cool on the panel.
Yeah, we heard her talk about it probably like 11 months ago at this point.
Yeah.
At last Scintillation. So my secondary recommendation is Scintillation 2 is coming up. If people are going to be free over Canadian Thanksgiving, October 11th to 13th, I think, and have $80 in a way to get to Montreal, and then also enough for a hotel room and food while you're there, it was a really, really fun time. It was super interesting, and it was a great place as far as, conventions go.
Officially, it's the second Scintillation coming
Yeah.
up, but unofficially, Joe Walton has been sort of the figurehead behind a convention in Montreal around that time for a few years before that she used to call the Farthing Party.
Yeah. So that's two of my recommendations, and my third recommendation is Tom Scott, a YouTuber, and his YouTube channel. I think he is like a linguist. I'm not 100% sure. I think he has a degree or some formal education in linguistics. But I'm not 100% sure on that. The point is that a while ago, he released a series of linguistic-based videos that I found really interesting, and it was actually how I found him. He does a lot of other really interesting stuff, but he's recently released a new sort of short run of them, and he might be continuing to, because I think he's put out like 2 or 3 videos, linguistics-based at this time, co-written by Gretchen. And that's sort of another thing that's reminding me. Scintillation is coming up. The book is out, and
you know what?
I'm watching videos that are co-written by her.
I should probably put in an order for that.
Yeah, we probably should, because it seems like it would be a really interesting read.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, definitely.
So
that's both of us. All right.
That's a set of 3 recommendations: a book, which you will have to purchase; a YouTuber who you can watch for free; and a convention, which has a pretty significant barrier to entry. And I doubt anybody will actually be going to based off of our recommendation here, but there we go.
Pretty cool if you did.
Just a couple things.
So I got a recommendation. I'm gonna do it later. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end of it. But maybe we'll start. This next thing is a thread from Reddit, and it's sort of it's a conversation between a few people, but we'll stick to the 2 people involved, and maybe we can each take a part in this.
Okay.
This is a dramatic reenactment. Okay.
I'll be the anti-us sentiment. You can start.
Oh, okay. No, this is the question is actually sort of the anti-us.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I'll start. Got my new favorite team. Just finished my new record at an ultimate battle. 2 minutes. And that's the post title.
That's Casper the Benzo Ghost. And then Devlin16, who is pretty active on the Reddit, or the subreddit for Injustice. And we know he's watched it because his response was, or Devlin is a male name?
I'm not sure. Their response is.
Their response.
Okay,
yeah. That's right. Sorry,
No
I don't know why it just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Your math.
No, it's good that it occurred to you.
Yeah, your math has to be off. You/BDCKR has a whole video, really good video by the way. That's not my parenthetical statement. That was Devlin's. On speedrunning, and I think their time averages out at 7 minutes for an ultimate. I have a hard time believing that time can be cut into less than half of their faster runs.
And then Casper the Benzo Ghost says, my timing isn't off. The last recent fight went to 2 minutes on my feed. Why the hell would I lie? Wonder Woman kills in a team in 10 to 12 seconds. I don't care about what those YouTubers think. I'll record one. And then there's another comment. They suck. And then there's a link to the video. It was 10 seconds late because I got greedy at the last fight and didn't wait for them to open up for a hit. It's almost always under 3 minutes. You get me, though.
Yeah, so apparently we suck. But that's sort of besides the point. Because this is conversation. This conversation is a good illustration of why it's so difficult when you talk about stuff online. Oh, and this is totally tangential, but why the grip board, which is a strength training board for hand strength, is so good, because you cannot make a world-class claim without video proof. Because, all right, so you'll notice that from the title, it starts off as finishing an ultimate battle in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Then it becomes...
from the video, if you watch the video.
Yeah, if you watch the video, it becomes an epic fight in 2 minutes, because it wasn't 7 fights, it was actually only 5.
Also, it was, 10 seconds late. It was a little late, right?
Well, and saying 10 seconds late, it's because the fight was more than 3 minutes. So it was 3 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So basically, it starts off ultimate in 2 minutes, epic 5 fights in 2 minutes, and then epic in almost always under 3 minutes. But they show an epic that's over 3 minutes.
3 minutes, 8 seconds.
After they remove the first main loading screen, and it starts after the, begin, the last sort of words on the screen. That's already passed. and then they start the fight, and then they cut the video as soon as the last card is knocked out, but you don't see the final stats at the end.
Yeah, so it's not like the actual full time that it takes to do a full run. And, you know, the time that it's recorded at is probably, when you actually sum it up, at least 3.5 minutes.
Well, so here's the thing. If you use the same criteria, where you're looking at the first 5 fights, and the ultimate fights in terms of difficulty, first 5 fights I think are the same as an epic. If you look at the ultimate run that we did, one of the ultimate runs that we did in that video where we talked about doing speed runs with the Flashpoint team,
Yeah.
it actually takes 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah, so that's, you know, their time here is reasonable.
Yeah, so it's nothing particularly special, but, you know, it comes to what people say and how accurate they are,
Yeah.
and how much they end up backtracking, and then
Yeah, an ultimate in 2 minutes versus an extra minute and 8 seconds to do 2 less fights.
right, so it goes from something pretty much impossible to do, which is an ultimate, you know, and we're talking 5,000 battle points, right? An ultimate battle in 2 minutes,
Yeah.
which is undoable, to an epic battle in 2 minutes, which is maybe undoable, but definitely really hard,
Yeah.
to an epic battle in less than 3, which doesn't always round down to 2.
Yeah.
That's math spoiler alert. So which is totally within the realm of possibility, because we've seen it. We've got video evidence that kind of speed is possible.
Yeah.
So when people are asking us for help, I was going to say health, for help with troubleshooting when they have difficulty with the game, right?
Yeah.
It's not only that, but on top of that, we don't know what else they've done to their game.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's not people's fault. Sometimes you just don't really have a sense of what's important. So when they say, this is the only thing I've ever done, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. And being able to tell the difference makes it that much harder to figure out what the solution is when somebody's having problems.
Yeah.
So that's why it was an interesting kind of discussion, because it illustrates the point completely. And it's not to dig on them, even though, you know, they think we suck, because, you know, we don't. Just in case you were wondering,
We don't suck?
we don't suck.
I wasn't sure about that. I mean, I think that's a matter of personal opinion
Yeah.
more than anything else. I don't know if we can say any definitive.
There's no objective criteria for suckage or not.
I think we're okay.
I think we're okay. I mean,
I,
if I think we're
I
okay,
guess that
we
really
wouldn't
is
be
up
doing
for the listeners to decide more than us. I don't think we get to say if we suck or not.
Hey, we got some time. All right, so I don't know if I mean, there's a thing from Twitter that maybe I'll get to that later, but we got some time. I wanted, because I just finished this book, I wanted to make some comments while it was fresh in my mind, but not so fresh that I was incoherent about it like I was last week when I mentioned that I was in the middle of reading it.
Yeah.
So, Fonda Lee wrote a couple books in a series. The first one was Jade City. It came out a year and a half ago, I want to say. 2 years.
Yeah.
It won the World Fantasy Award for the best novel. And the sequel, Jade War, came out recently in the last couple months. And it was amazing. I want to... And you know how last week when I talked about book recommendations and how it's very subjective.
Yeah.
And you gotta be careful about making sure you recommend the right book to the right person, because otherwise, not only will they not enjoy themselves, but then they won't trust your recommendations or your taste.
Yeah.
And so you have to have an idea of what they like to read. This one doesn't matter. This one I think will have broad appeal, and especially with this audience, which is Injustice, which is a collecting and fighting game. The fight scenes are spectacular. All right, so I probably should give some context, and I'm gonna screw this up a little bit, because remember how I say that when I read a book, I'm not great on details.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty good on remembering how I feel about it.
Yeah. You just finished this, so that's gonna really test that.
Okay, so the conceit is it's alternate reality. It feels like it's in present times with some minor changes, but the big thing is there's something called bioenergetic jade. So jade is that green stone, right?
Yeah.
But this bioenergetic jade can give you amazing powers and basically enhanced abilities, like that are great for hand-to-hand combat.
Okay, so it's like reverse kryptonite.
Yes. Well, yeah, perfect.
It's a green
'cause
rock
green.
that makes you
It's
more
green.
powerful.
So you can have strengths where that's obvious, you're just stronger.
Yeah.
You can steal making parts of your body really hard for defensive purposes, like somebody attacking you, you steel yourself. You can channel, which it feels like, I'm not exactly sure, but it has something to do with the flow of energies in your body, and they can use that to kill people.
That's fun.
And heal. There's light, which you can make yourself really light, and you can so you
like
can
weight
jump
wise.
really, so you can jump really high, really far. There's perception, so you can really tell what's going on. You can like hear somebody's heartbeat, just pick up, or I guess that they were noticing when somebody's blood pressure was going up too.
Huh. Interesting. You know what I think is fun about abilities like light?
What?
The fact that I think if you're light, I think when we think of that being used to make people jump higher in like media,
yeah,
we tend to just think of them springing up and flying into the sky. But I like to imagine whenever people have that powers, it's like people being on the moon, essentially, right? You would move in the same way, because that's what actually being light does to your body.
Yeah, it would be if you had no control of it as constant, but because you're actually consciously affecting it, you can do it in a way so that you go up, but then you have enough heaviness. I mean, your mass is supposed to not change, right? Your heaviness to come back down.
Yeah.
So you
I just say that's how I like to read it. Whenever somebody is pressing light and springing around, I imagine
right, because they're slow, they're
jumping like on
hopping
the moon.
around. Yeah, that's funny.
And one thing, this is another recommendation. The Boys was really good.
Oh,
and
I'm almost done that. No spoilers, please.
No, I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm going to say there's one very specific scene in which somebody is asking a character to do something, which is totally consistent with what a superhero with their powers does in tons of other media.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really quick back and forth, because it's sort of it's a situation that necessitates a superhero, so it's an emergency situation.
Right.
Whereas there's a really quick snappy back and forth about why the physics on that totally don't work.
I think I know what
scene
you're talking about.
right?
Yes.
I'm not going to say anything because it's a total spoiler. I will just say that it is with Homelander and Maeve.
Yes, I know that scene.
Yeah?
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
It is super, super good. It is a wonderful, wonderful scene. And I think the way that it's really quick, it's really snappy. They don't make it a boring, like, discussion of the physics. It's not like some super nerdy thing, right? But they're talking. And
well, these are people talking with the experience. So
Yeah.
they may not understand. They don't even have to understand the physics behind it. But because they've got the experience of doing it, then it... Yeah, there's something... I'm really enjoying The Boys.
But it was the moment that they started talking about it, and she suggested it, and I was like, oh, he could totally do that. And then he explained all the reasons why he couldn't, and it didn't make sense.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh,
he's right.
He's 100% right. It makes intuitive sense. It's just the sort of...
It's the expectations.
Yeah,
the tropes that we have, that we know about superheroes and what they do and how they do it.
Yeah, it's the lens that we view superheroes through makes us totally not question it. And that was such a... Like, in a show full of really, really good scenes, obviously it's super inappropriate. They're, content warning. Obviously, it's nothing like our content.
Right.
As far as family friendliness goes, it's pretty much as far the opposite direction as you can get without being, I think, like, purposely disgusting.
Right.
But that scene was, like, just really snappy and really quick in such good writing and character development and everything, and it just really exemplified, like, all my favorite parts of the show, I think.
So I should...
That, like,
all right, so I should point out
45-second exchange.
The writer of the original comic book was Garth Ennis. After I started watching it, somebody, whether it was you or maybe
it was me,
that told me that it was based on a comic book originally. Yeah. I looked up who did the original. I gotta tell you, I'm not surprised Garth Ennis did it. He was also responsible for Preacher.
Yeah. And Seth Rogen has adapted both of them as like a producer.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, no, but so
go Canada.
The Boys is stellar. Okay. It's really, really good.
How did we get on? All right, so I should probably get back to... I don't think I made my...
You're talking about jump. Point. You're talking about the ability...
Oh, light. Yes,
and,
yes.
Yeah, I went off on a tangent about how the Boys addresses powers really realistically, too.
So the idea of this bioenergetic jade is that if you're not trained to use it, that you have the mental discipline and the practice using it, it can drive you crazy. So in some ways it's like a drug, so that not only can it overwhelm you when you're taking it, but you can go into really huge withdrawal when it gets taken away from you. So not everybody has it. It's something very valuable. The people who have a lot of jade and also the ability to use it are called green bones, and they're organized into clans. And most of what they do isn't explicitly criminal, but the clans exert power in everyday life, just like sort of in parallel with politicians in that world. Mm-hmm. And it's very much like organized crime families.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you remember last week when I started talking about trying to explain what it was about, that one of the things I started saying it was about crime, and then I thought about it, I had to take it back because I thought, ooh, it doesn't feel exactly right to say that.
Yeah.
But then as I look back on it, it is very much like crime families because, they have their hand in criminal activities. That's where they make some of their money. But it's not all of it because they still do other things. Like, criminals can't be criminals all day, all the time.
And
That's
if you have
their
a
job.
bunch of Jade, you're still part of, like, the social elite. So it still is, like,
Yes.
it's all tied in.
Yes. So what I wanted to point out that I think our audience for Injustice will really enjoy, there are some really spectacular fight scenes. And I think, so anytime I'm reading something that I like to learn more about it. So apparently the author, Fonda Lee, has a black belt in one of the martial arts. And
Ooh.
you really get a sense of this, that this is somebody who knows how fights go, because it just feels really, like, they're believable. Like, they're not...
So the author both has good writing chops and good experience with martial arts. And when you put those together, it makes a really believable fight experience.
And so this is... I hate to put down something else to explain why this is so good, so I'm going to maybe not do it like I ended up doing it maybe inadvertently last week. But it's not just the fight scenes. On top of that, because, I mean, you could have just a fight scene. It doesn't really hold a book together.
Yeah.
But there's lots of intrigue and sort of higher level scheming where we're talking about geopolitical forces, like small region, large region kind of conflicts. But there's also conflict at a really personal level that has an impact on the world stage. And it's really, like, there's just so much going on. It's really interesting. There's a lot of tension.
Yeah.
And at every single level, like, there's so much going on.
Yeah.
And I just could not, as much as I have other responsibilities, to the extent that my life lets me, I basically used up all my, like, free time reading this, and I am so sad it's over. I can't wait till the next book comes out, and I can't say enough about it. I think if anybody who's watching this video likes to read, you need to do yourself a favor, read Jade City, and count yourself lucky that you didn't have to wait for Jade War to come out, and then feel really sad when you realize that the next book probably isn't coming out for at least another year.
And that's how I felt about Name of the Wind and Wise Man's Fear, waiting for book 3.
Yes, and that wait is still not over, but I bet it's going to be totally worth it when it comes out.
At this point, it doesn't even need to be totally worth it. I think Patrick Rothfuss has done a lot of really cool stuff. I'm just sort of happy for the world for having him reach the level of success that he has, enough that it doesn't even really matter if book 3 comes out.
Yeah, and I mean, there's going to be... I'm so looking forward to all the other stuff that's coming out, right? Because there's going to be... I think there's going to be a TV show that Lin-Manuel Miranda's working on.
Doing the music for,
like a prequel for it, right?
I'm not sure what the TV show is. Either way.
So are they going to adapt the King Killer Chronicles into a movie or a TV show?
I think it's both.
Okay.
The understanding that I had is that Lionsgate is optioning it for movie and TV show at the same time. And then also potentially a game.
Nice.
I think it's supposed to be a set of all 3. That'll be exciting if and when those media properties start to come out. And I'm assuming, because, Lin-Manuel Miranda's attached, that seems like a thing that they're actually planning on, like, definitely putting out at some point.
Okay. This has got me thinking, right? The fact that we sort of threw it out there. We're watching The Boys. That's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
And we've been watching other stuff, which is on Netflix. We've got both now. And it strikes me that what's happening now is because it's all getting so fragmented. Now Disney Plus is coming out, and they're going to be taking all their Marvel and Disney movies away from Netflix. This is basically like a decentralized kind of cable service.
It's Cable 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Electric Boogaloo. I remember when that came out, and I thought, damn, those guys are so cool. I would love to learn how to break dance.
I don't know what the original is. I divorced from the context of the meme. What's the original Electric Boogaloo?
I don't even know if there was one. I remember seeing the movie. I honestly don't even remember.
Wait, is Electric Boogaloo a movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least 2 was a movie. I don't know if 1 was, but yeah, 2 was definitely a movie. And I thought that was just like the way they could move and the stuff they were doing. It was athletic and it was great. Like it's the same kind of respect I have for anybody who does just really physical things that take a lot of dedication and training to achieve that looks really spectacular.
Oh, okay, so it's Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, and it's a joke because...
Was there Breaking 1?
I don't know. But it got mediocre reviews, and now it's a joke thing that you append to something that you think is mediocre.
Honestly, it wasn't. I mean, clearly I'm a kid. I mean, it's the same idea that I think Joe Walton says, right? When you go back to something that you enjoyed as a kid, and in this case I'm not going to go back, is that the suck fairy gets to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that really was meaningful to you when you were a child, and over the years, I mean, it's sort of the joke really is, it's not the suck fairy got to it, is that you've changed enough.
Yeah.
So you have a different appreciation for stuff, so that maybe when you're younger, when I was younger, I wasn't as sophisticated, and I appreciated different things, and now maybe my tastes have evolved a bit.
Yeah.
So I
And I feel like
anything,
any media content that is based primarily on dance as its core now is, I think, pretty open season to be mocked.
I guess so.
Like, I think for musicals are a little protected, even if they're cheesy, but you know, I'm trying to think of the depiction of that in pop culture, in like the sort of plays that people would go to where it was primarily dance based, like the like Stomp, right? Stomp got mocked by Bob's Burgers.
Oh, did
with,
it?
Like the clap, right? Where there was some like clap based like patty cake or whatever. Oh, it was cake instead of Stomp.
Oh.
Where there's a whole thing where Bob really ends up loving the performance.
And I think maybe that's the kind of thing that happens when something, I mean, if it didn't get popular, that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Like if it didn't reach some sort of
if there wasn't some level of cultural awareness, if it wasn't sort of zeitgeist adjacent.
Yes, that's exactly. Those are not the words I was thinking of, but you've got the point exactly. Yeah. So because it becomes such a big thing that people become aware of, then it's easier to make a joke about it, only because more people will get it, and then that kind of, that not self-referential, but that kind of allusion to other things
is less likely to be lost.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true, because those jokes tend to not work particularly well by themselves. I think the mark of a good joke like that is when it does actually stand on its own. Yeah. And I think in the Bob's Burgers example, it totally does stand on its own. Where you don't need to know about Stomp. It's just sort of a funny concept in and of itself because it's developed. It's not, the joke isn't the reference. The reference is part of the joke.
Right.
It's a component of the joke that enhances it if you know the reference.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I do want to mention one other thing that I really liked about the Greenbone Saga.
Ooh, okay.
Which is actually, you know, and the more I say it, the more funny it sounds. But the what. Clearly, it's Asian inspired.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of stuff that, because it's an alternate world, the countries are not the same. But in my mind, there's clearly analogs to places in Asia where this stuff is happening.
Yeah.
And I think what's funny to me is that even though it's not specifically, they don't say Chinese or Filipino or Japanese or Korean or whatever, that it feels so real. And it feels more accurate depicting that than some places that actually specifically are supposed to be from Asia.
And I like that it's good too, because when you make it sort of analogs instead of explicit, right?
Mm-hmm.
You also sort of, it's harder when you have all the baggage of an actual real culture,
right?
When you're depicting them,
because you have to get it right, or somebody's going to be peeved.
Not even you should get it right.
Yeah.
It's not because somebody's going to be peeved. It's because these are, you know, people's cultures, right? And it's to some extent important to get it right, as much as you're trying to say it is correct, right?
That's true.
I think the more you're trying to put forward the idea that this is how things are, right? And this is like what each culture is like, or at least the microcosm, right? Whatever you're showing is supposed to be accurate and true to the culture, right? You're going to be altering people's perceptions of it who read your book, right? When you try to make that claim, when you make it sort of an analog, the further you stray from it, I think people would be like, yeah, well, I mean, it's not supposed to be literal, right? It's supposed to be sort of inspired. It's an aesthetic choice, and there's some crossover, but wherever you deviate from it doesn't matter as much. And to do that, but then get it right anyways, just because you're, you know,
so
knowledgeable enough is, I think, really cool.
And that's just a sign of great world building. Like, everything there in it, like, there's just layers and layers. It's not just set dressing and for show. There feels like there's a fundamental difference, not enough to alienate you, but a fundamental difference in attitude towards certain things that is, because it's so consistent, that it really submerges you in what feels like real culture. And I'm going to point out one thing, and I know part of it might just be because I like the book so much that I'm willing to make allowances, but what's funny to me is that usually when there's a detail that's jarring, often it'll take me out of a story.
Fair enough.
So in this case, but in this case it does the opposite. When in this world, you know, jade is amazing.
Yeah.
They're called green bones. Green is like a good adjective. Like in our world, when somebody's green, they're a noob.
Yeah.
In this world, when you're green, they're fresh. In this world, when you're green, you are powerful, you are influential, you have status.
Ooh.
And so, instead of pulling me out of the story, it reinforced to me, like, every time I heard it, I had that expectation, and it brought it back to me how I was in this different world. And instead of pulling me out, it pushed me deeper in each time to think, okay, so this is where I am right now.
It was just a little reminder.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and looks like we're out of time. Perfect timing. So just to finish up, we'd like to give a huge thank you to all the people who have decided to support us on Patreon. So a huge thanks to Console Peasant, who is supporting us at the highest tier, Last Word, John Auriemma at the Your Message Cheer tier, Shawn Farrell, Daniel Simonson, Aaron Mall, and Michael DeVries, who support us on the credited level, and Eddie G and Chris Wolf at the Gratitude tier. Thanks so much for your support, and thanks so much to all of you for watching, listening, or otherwise consuming our content. I don't know how else you'd be getting it into your brain, but thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Komoda.